Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on Epicureanism. When John suggested I do it, it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And as is usually the case, I say, oh, yeah, no problem, because it's so far in the future. I think, it's going to be easy. But then, the time gets closer and you think, uh, I'm feeling discomfort because I haven't started it yet. And then I recognize that, well, okay, that's a very Epicurean thing, because the whole point of the Epicurean philosophy is to get rid of discomfort. And that was what propelled me to actually start working on my presentation, in a reasonable time so that I wouldn't feel totally stressed out. So we are going to talk about Epicureanism, and Epicureanism is associated with the idea of maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. So pleasure is at the heart of the Epicurean philosophy. But before you guys and ladies get too excited, Epicurean pleasure isn't the pleasure that is commonly thought of by most people. Epicurean pleasure is a very particular type of pleasure, and it is marked by a sort of measured balance approach that is completely lacking in extremes. Because the Epicureans were very much aware of the fact that extremes, any kind of extreme, can ultimately lead to imbalance, and imbalance is a lack of pleasure. By definition, anything that lacks balance leads to discomfort. And a lack of pleasure and any anxiety that you get is actually a form of pain, and pain is to be avoided at all costs. Okay, now I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk about all these issues in more detail and why they came to these ideas soon. But before we do that, I think we need to start at the beginning. And the beginning is giving you a brief background of where Epicurus comes from. So Epicurus was born in 341 before Common Era and lived up to 270 BCE. He was a Hellenistic Greek moral philosopher who ultimately identified the goal of life as happiness. Now, a very important part of the Epicurean philosophy is that it was very closely tied to science, and a very particular type of science. So science was an important aspect of the Epicurean philosophy, which was all-encompassing, really. It was a system of thought that was very appealing. And it was very appealing because it really tried to give people instruction on how to live one's life. So unlike some other philosophers like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, who were more cerebral in their approach to knowledge, the Epicurean system was very much about how one ought to live day to day. Now, the main source for us of the Epicurean system is Diogenes Laertes, who wrote a book by the name of Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers, and Epicurus was an important part of that writing. Epicurus was born on the Greek island of Samos to Athenian parents. They later moved to Colophon in Asia Minor. And in Colophon, he was taught a very, very important philosophy, which was the atomic theory that was proposed by Democritus. And Luciphanes as well was another atomic theorist. He was purportedly taught by another very popular teacher by the name of Nasophenes. And when I was doing research on this, I read that apparently Epicurus didn't really think much of Nasophenes. He mocked him in some of his writings later on. However, he did get from that teacher the sort of essential component of his own philosophy. Around 306 BCE, he acquired in Athens a house with a garden, hence the garden back here, that is also known as a kepos. And he gave the name the garden or kepos to a community of friends, and then to the philosophical school that he started in general. And Diogenes Laertes records that when Epicurus died, he basically passed the leadership of the school to Hermarokos, and he gave all sorts of information and instructions as to how the school and the gatherings of the school should be run.